Hello, everyone. Welcome to our latest edition of Inside the Deal Expert Sessions. We're going to be doing our advanced multi-threading today, and we are gathered with Gal Aga and Krysten Connor. I will let them introduce themselves, and then I'll do a couple of housekeeping before we get into the good stuff of this webinar. But Gal, I'll let you take it away, and then we'll switch to Krysten.
Yes, thank you. So thanks everyone for joining. Really excited about this topic today. It's one that's very close to heart, and we have a guest that's really the expert, the best one to talk about this. So Gal, co-founder and CEO of Aligned. I've been 20 years in tech sales, mainly focused on complex sales, enterprise, mid-market. Was former CRO, VP sales, and that experience really inspired me to build Aligned with my co-founders and really drive like a customer-facing workspace to help reps execute deals and equip buyers to decide faster. And also very passionate about talking about buyer enablement and advanced selling tools like multi-threading. And I think one of the best person is here today to talk about this topic with me. So Krysten Connor, we've done some content in the past, so I know what uh, like I always learn so much, so I know what we have here today. Krysten is I'll let you introduce yourself more, but she's an enterprise sales expert. She's one of the biggest advocates of multi-threading, one of the people that talks about it the most. I think the experience is enterprise sales from Outreach, Tableau, Salesforce, really the best companies out there. And you should check out also master classes on P Club. She's everywhere. Sell Better, 30 MPC. So Krysten, great to have you.
Yeah, I always learn so much from you. So I'm excited to do this. And yeah, so I went from teaching seventh graders to trying to close seven-figure deals in tech and made absolutely all the mistakes. And so including with multi-threading. So I always just try to, and there were so many people that helped me. I can't pay them back. So try to pay it forward because it's one of those things that's super important. Reps get told a lot that they should do it, but not a lot about how to do it.
Amazing. Well, Kristen, we're so excited to have you here. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we kick this off. So I will be moderating this. I'm our head of marketing here at Aligned. If you have any questions during this event, please throw it in the chat. If you're anything like me, I will forget the question if I wait till the very end to ask it. So please throw it in there. We'll be taking notes. We'll be sprinkling in some questions if they seem relevant at the time. Otherwise, we will have a section at the very end for Q&A. And yes, this event will be recorded and sent out, so you'll be seeing an email from me with this recording as well. But before we get into this, it's going to be a very tactical session today. So if you have a notebook ready to go or your AI note taker, it's ready to go. We're going to be going into advanced pieces here. But Gal, I would love for you to kind of just set the scene. I feel like there's a lot of kind of like myths that occur when it comes to multi-threading. Do you want to kind of set the scene here before we get into the exact tactics?
Yeah. So Krysten, I'd love to hear from you as well, and I think we'll go and dive deeper a into a lot of the myths. But I think on a high level, I actually said something that is wrong at the beginning. It's not an advanced selling tool. I think that's one of the biggest thing that people think about multi-threading as one of these really kind of advanced tactics, right? I go and I run a deal, and maybe I'll have this email that my CEO sends, or I'll try to go around my champion's back, and they think about it as something that's very advanced. And I think just the core fundamental reality of where people get this wrong is it's as fundamental job to be done of a complex sales process as discovery. Okay, you ask questions to build a business case and to try to navigate the deal in the best possible way, or to even qualify your in or out. At the same way, you want to intentionally build consensus across the buying group, right? Like in order for a deal to happen, for a buying group, right, to make a decision, it's not a DM anymore. It's a buying committee. Like all of these needs to take place. You need to have a business case. You need to have a qualified deal. You need to have a plan with someone, with a champion, and you need to have consensus built. So that's the core idea. So we see it really the way that I view it is like it's the basics. It's the basic tool. You run a demo, you do a trial, you do discovery, and you need to multi-thread. Um, so that's how I'm looking at it, and I think it's more critical now than ever because I think that complex sales is no longer a synonym for enterprise sales. It used to be, but
Hmm.
today an SMB deal can have 5 to 6 people involved on average. We have an AI first digital buyer that does a lot more without us. They're Gen Y, Gen Z, AI, PLG. So much more is spent without us. So we need to be influencing the discussions that are happening about us without us when you're not in the room. And just everything is just much more complex. There's more stakeholders, more scrutiny. So all of that. So you need multi-threading. Your champion needs multi-threading. I think that's how I would set the stage. Krysten, anything to
Yeah.
add?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people used to think about this as only for like multi-million dollar deals, but you, as we were talking in prep, I had a 5-figure deal, like literally a 20K deal where a CFO was involved. And so, I mean, and that happens when, when money's tight and it becomes like a hard selling environment. So yeah, it used to be something that I think people thought about like, oh, you only have to have this for the really big deals. And you look at the data from like Harvard Business Review and Gartner, like you have an average of 6 to 12 decision makers now in an average like B2B sale. And I just saw some data from RepView from Q2 of 25 that basically said deals 10K and under have slowed down the most, and which was surprising. That's not what I expected.
Interesting.
And I think
Yeah.
part of that is why is that you've still got 3 to 12 people that are weighing in on a $10,000 decision sometimes.
Interesting.
Okay, so we have just a couple of like myth realities here. Kristen, Gal, I'll let you take it away, or if you feel like we kind of covered these a little bit too, as well.
I think this is a big mindset shift. It was a big
Yeah.
one for me. Um, like because we think so often people think about, oh well, if I go to talk to somebody else, my champion is going to feel like I'm going around them. Well, first of all, if you've got somebody who's gatekeeping in an organization, who's trying to keep you from talking to other people in the org, that's not a champion. That's a
Mm.
contact at best, a blocker at worst. Like a true champion is going to teach you how to sell to their organization and help you get in with the right people. But to a true champion, multi-threading is a huge advantage to them because like Forbes and McKinsey data says that 70% of change initiatives fail. And executives do not want, champions do not want their name attached to something that fails. And the more support they have in the organization, the less risky it feels to them. Those deals go faster, those deals don't stall as much. And that's why reps get told that they should do this, and they hear like, oh well, multi-threaded deals close like faster or larger, and they don't think about the why. Like this is the why, because it decreases the risk for the champion. And I think if we can get in that mindset, when we view it as a give to the champion, not a risk or an ask.
Yeah, 100%. I think that what you said at the beginning resonates a lot. If the champion won't do this, then yeah, there's no deal anyway. Um, and I have a story. So we once worked this deal. I was we had a POC, not aligned. I was a sales director. We had a POC that dragged forever. And a negotiation that was just very hard to nail down. We're running it in parallel. And basically, it was a situation where just there was the pain. Our champion has had power, and he was fighting, but it wasn't very smooth, and he was pretty much alone in this. And we always felt like he had to. He was a little bit in trying to fill too much of a big shoes of trying to bring a very big pool into that deal. So he was fighting, and we always thought, okay, we built relationship. Let's not go around him. But we were basically pretty much single-threaded. We had more people involved in the POC, but what happened is the moment we got to advanced stages of the negotiation, the COO was looped in. He was looped in too late, and he made asks that were just too extreme. We just couldn't manage it. And these asks could have been mitigated if he would have been involved in the POC earlier, if we would have had some of these conversations earlier. So at the end of the day, the fact that we just didn't make that connection earlier and we just went with our champion and not recommended what to do, we just it hurt both sides. He didn't have enough support. We weren't able to just manage that situation. So we should have probably do something like to say before the POC. And I know a lot of companies today, and today it's a rule for me, but like to say before the POC, sounds like your COO is a serious stakeholder. We're happy to run this POC. The way that we do it is by aligning first with an executive sponsor on both sides to ensure that both resources are well spent over here without any drags, and it just will provide higher likelihood of success, right? So doing something like that, making it a part of your process, this would have saved it. There are other ways, but just a story here that maybe will resonate.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think this myth about it's all about the most senior title is a big one. Like people think reps get told all the time, like go high in the organization, talk to a C level, talk to a VP level. And you've done some great content around how like executives are too busy to be your champion, essentially. Like they'll be the economic buyer, but they're too busy to be the champion. And I just saw a post from a um, from a CISO last night on LinkedIn. Her name's Aisha Khan. And the post says, like, vendors, here's what I want you to know. Too many of you spend your energy trying to impress me with slides, demos, and promises, but my yes doesn't come from your pitch. It comes from my people.
Mm.
Like, it's incredible. Like, and you're like, yep, that's it. Because they no more are executives going to go against what their people say, because their people are the ones that have to use it and they trust them. That's why they're in place. Right. And so like every VP has a director they lean on. Every director has a manager who's their go-to. Every manager has an individual on their team that's like the rock star. They all have those people they trust implicitly. And the people who are not executives, they can't tell us yes on their own, but they can definitely tell us no on their own if it doesn't work for them.
Yeah, that kind of obsession with power. Okay, the above the line stakeholders, I think, is just one of the most critical ones. We're PLG, so we had so many deals where AEs closed the deal. Like we had even an AE championing, a strategic AE championing a deal. We recently, a quarter ago, we had a big company who was going through a multi-billion-dollar acquisition. During the sales process, CFO says from the top, no purchases. Like
Oh, wow.
until this acquisition is completed, we are not buying anything. One of the ICs on the strat team, who's closing seven-figure deals, Fortune 100, 500 deals, he basically went up to the CFO directly and said, "I have multi-million dollar deals right now on the table, and I'm closing them because of Aligned. I need this now." Like, and he got us through the finish line before the end of the quarter in AE. So definitely, I would not think about power as, yeah, he like that guy does not have the power, right? He could not sign a check. He could not go and sit in a decision committee, probably, maybe, but in most cases not. But he's so influential. He's like the, 5 years at the company, the rep that everyone, gives shout outs to and goes maybe to lunch with the CEO, and he has influence. So yeah.
Yep, 1000%. Oh gosh, this myth about people on one call equals progress. Group demos are the worst, like the worst. No one, it's like it's like having a buffet with not enough food and everyone gets just a little bit and everyone leaves like more angry than they came in because they were promised food and it wasn't enough. Like, yeah, group demos are awful. They feel efficient, but they are actually not. And then one of the biggest things I work on with the AEs that I coach is that multi-threading is not mass emailing, not mass demoing. Multi-threading is multiple individual lines of communication with the people that influence a deal. If think about it, just think about it from your own, like from your own mindset. If you get an email and there are 20 people's names in the to line, you're like, well, somebody else is in charge of this. Somebody else is doing something about this. There's no individual thing for you to do. And so you file it or archive it or delete it or whatever. So if it's nobody's baby, it's an orphan, right? But if you send stuff individually to people, they will be more honest, they will be more candid, and they'll know it's for them, that you are depending on them or asking them directly versus blasting it out to 20 people. Nobody's going to do anything with that.
Amazing. Okay, well, we have a couple of other kind of like myths, realities that we can go through. These will all be included in the event recap as well that you'll be getting. But just looking at this, I think it'd be really cool if we could jump into the 10 plays that we have for multi-threading that you can steal. This is the tactical bit here. Would love to kind of go into this and give everyone here in this webinar something to walk away from as well. So when we're looking at these 10 multi-threading plays, we can go over the first one, which is early executive sponsorship. Would love to hear from you of what this looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the idea here is like a lot of times we're thinking about involving our executives and trying to help in a deal. And one of the issues that a lot of reps, one of the mistakes here is to do it too late. Like if I'm going and reaching out because there's now something wrong in a deal, then that interaction is a little bit more, it has less of a chance to work because there's already an objection. I'm coming here out of the bloom. So it's not that I've not built a relationship as an executive or VP sales or whoever it is. So what we found to work best and a lot of people recommend is really to try to do an executive connection earlier. One of the great ways to do it, even if you don't get a reply, you basically get a higher likelihood later on for for you when you do need something and you reach out to get an answer. Right? So the idea is that even a thanks reply is good, and you just say that you've been involved behind the scenes, you wanted to make yourself um, you acknowledge something, you have to have some kind of a POV, something that shows that you've done a little bit of work, but really that you're here to support the process. Should anything, here's my WhatsApp, here's my personal number, something like that that keeps it intimate, um, and a good connection in place. And you're not asking, there's no ask. The ask is, hey, don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything. That's the ask. So I think
Mhm.
that's the move. I tried to find an email, something that we really simply did. We had this deal, a CRO of a $20 billion SaaS. I just checked. I saw him like one of my posts at some point. I knew that we're early in the process. Connected. I asked my AE like, what's the situation, and sent, hey John, great to connect. Know my team is working with your enterprise sales team on a formal evaluation or deal rooms to help reduce no decision, improve multi-threading. Not sure if you're in the loop. I'll actually be in San Francisco, in San Carlos for SaaStr next week. If you're around, I'd love to get together and bring you up to speed. If not, that's also fine. If you need me at any point, please don't hesitate to reach out. So I made it personal. I said, hey, if you want to be brought up to speed, I'm here. This is a little bit more of a direct ask than what I would normally do. And what happened next? He was traveling and he started connecting me with other VPs at the business, and we started building on a partnership in parallel. And he connected with other people who weren't in the loop, and he said, this person needs to see this and that person needs to see this. That's it. Just one email got us more multi-threaded, opened that channel with him, and even started the partnership going on in parallel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this idea, people were asking about how do you, in the chat, people were talking about, how do you do multi-threading without this feeling of going around? Um, if our executive emails the prospect's executive without the AE on the thread, it's that early executive touch. It opens that channel of communication, and then I literally had a director come back to me and be like, "Your VP just emailed my CEO. They shouldn't have done that. And I was just like, just like you don't have control over everything your boss does, like I don't have control over everything my boss does. So it does give some plausible deniability, right? And the same thing for technical resources. Technical resources can reach out to other technical resources. And I have a whole set of templates about how to ghostwrite these for your executive, and we can send that as the follow-up, because those are hard to do. But if you have a template for like, this is how I can get you, we have to make it easy for our executives to help us, and ghostwriting it for them really quickly can be a great way to do that.
Yeah. Krysten, how often does that happen? Did that happen to you that someone said you shouldn't have done that? Because
Probably more times than I can count. But that's the
okay,
reflex.
but frame for people. Is it like,
Yeah.
would it happen like
Yeah. So
1%, 10% of all
yeah.
deals?
Yeah. I mean, I would say 30% of the time, but here's the deal. Here's the thing about that. This is something a mentor told me and I've never forgotten it. And she said, real deals aren't fragile. So if one executive sending an email to another executive is not viewed as additive and not viewed as value and viewed as enough to blow up a deal, that deal was not a deal to begin with. Right. And so and actually, so that deal I told you about where the director was upset, like the feathers were ruffled, like he wasn't thrilled with me, but like 3 weeks later, we closed the deal with them. Like real strong, because there was value in what we had. They needed what we had. I understood the value. Like real relationships can withstand things when feathers get ruffled a little bit. It's not the end of the world unless your deal wasn't a deal to begin
Oh, that. See, people want to get that tattooed in the comments.
with.
I feel like we need some post-it notes for our display
Real deals
monitor.
aren't fragile.
All right, let's go on to the second play, champion insurance. Gal, what's your thoughts here?
Um, yeah, so I think the issue here is that uh, we need to divorce the idea of we have a main contact and everything goes through that contact. I think it goes through it's true, it holds true in a lot of things related to multi-threading, and having one champion is one of them. So, we're all thinking about, yeah, the biggest mistake maybe is when you think that your main contact is a champion, but that's a different story. That's a different webinar topic. But maybe let's just level the playing field over here. Who is a champion, right? It's someone with either power or influence. So there might be above the line. They can sign the check. They can approve budgets. They can uh, they they have they're in that decision committee, uh, or they're below the line but have a lot of influence. There's someone with motivation and there's someone with personal gain. And but the thing is that champion could leave. That champion might not be strong enough to pull something through. You might have people that are very, very motivated, that have a lot to gain. For example, in our side, we're selling to sales. Sometimes RevOps will lead, but very often it's sales. But then RevOps have a lot to gain, or maybe we're selling to sales and CS also has a lot to gain, and CS starts getting into the loop, and now we get to a point where we recognize potential in a VPCS also pushing this through. Or we recognize that there are multiple directors. We have the VP level, but maybe some of the directors of sales, they really, really have a lot of influence at the company. and we will start isolating these people and really turn them into champions. They're not just stakeholders, they're now real champions that are we're keeping in the loop. We're maybe meeting 2, 3 people together to navigate the deal. Now, the thing is to remember, you still need someone, like if no one is accountable, if there's no one kind of main person steering the sheep on their side, then it's a little bit risky now, right? Because then who are you building a mutual action plan with? Like who's the someone needs to decide next steps, but still you could have multiple people that you're syncing with on an ongoing basis that are pushing. It's much healthier for the deal. Now, when not to do it is, for example, if we would start, we just have this situation. We have a 200K deal on the table that we're waiting for a signature any moment now, fingers crossed. And it delayed significantly in the quarter because at some point we sold to sales. At some point, CS started getting interested, and we tried to not make it a big thing and try to push it really towards later on, and because he knew it adds risk. So if we would proactively try to build a bigger deal, bring in more champions, try to work multiple budgets in parallel, then really think carefully because then you're potentially even stacking risk into the deal, trying to expand it, making a bigger one, bringing multiple department and budget champions. So I would think about it carefully in situations like that, but in most situations, it's really great practice, great tool to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, One thing I would add there on that personal gain piece, I think um, sometimes the motivation is like ambition or revenue. Like sometimes it's very clear, but sometimes it's not as clear what it would be. And I'll send this to Ashley, but Jeffrey James did this great piece in Inc. magazine years ago that talked about the 6 emotions that make customers buy. And
Mm.
and so after I read that, I started in all of my opportunity notes writing down what I thought the emotional driver was for the champions in that situation. And one of the biggest deals I ever sold, it was altruism. He wanted his team to not be overworked. And I was talking in terms of revenue, but I kept hearing him talk about my team, my team, my team. And as soon as I flipped
Mm.
my language to what the team would get, which was true, I just hadn't been talking about it, that's when the deal started moving a lot faster. So I think it's definitely worth thinking about. But that is like an advanced player move for thinking about what is the emotional driver of the people who need this done. And that's why sales is infinitely interesting to me, is the psychology that is involved there, but it can be very powerful.
I love that. Quick question for you both. Mark has a question in the chat. How do you test for influence above the line?
So so like below the line buyers, like this is how you can find out if someone is like essentially, so below the line, I would call them a coach, not a champion, but this is how you can find out if someone below the line will advocate for you, or to be like, whereas if they could tell you, in America, we would say like inside baseball, or like things that basically could get them in trouble, like insights about their company. Like if they say, oh, Gal really leans on Ashley, like she's the chief of staff, she doesn't have a sales title, but that is his go-to. If you want to get Gal's ear, you go through Ashley, right? If they are giving you the inside, below the line people know what's up a lot of times, and they can give you the inside scoop of like who really has the juice in the organization, who gets listened to, who gets stuff pushed through, who versus who doesn't. So below the line is helpful in understanding that. And also if we ask a above the line leader to do something and they do it and people listen, or they do it and the thing changes, the deal changes, we understand the influence they have, versus if we ask them to do something and they don't do it or no one pays attention, like, we can, actions there kind of speak louder than words.
Okay, let's move on to the third play, which is multi single threading, which is a fun way to play this. So would love to
Mm.
hear from you both on this.
I'd love to give credit to someone. I don't know who who invented that language, but it's really great. And I saw someone asked in the Q&A again, like, what is the fundamental? What does it mean to multi-thread? So just to remind everyone, we're talking about just intentionally building consensus across the buying group, right? Um, and one of the things that where people get this wrong is they think that it's about access. It's about me getting to someone, having a lot of people on the call. I think, Krysten, you mentioned that earlier, or having a lot of people copied on an email. So that's step one. Okay, so I'd rather have like a bad situation. The worst situation you could have is a lot of stakeholders that you have access to, but you're not influencing. Okay, because that does not mean that you're multi-threaded. It means that you have a really risky deal with a lot of people looped in. It's actually even better to have a few people that you have strong influence on, and than that situation, because they could really champion and that could really evangelize. So this tactic basically says, like, I think it's really at the core of how you should think about multi-threading, is we're trying to build multiple threads. And each one of these threads basically takes effort. So this tactic is about isolating people, not thinking, okay, I have some voices, people right now on the call that are hearing me out. Does it mean that I'm really uh, making them improving their sentiment towards us? Does it mean that I'm really right now making them solving objections and making them internal evangelists? No, right? So the whole idea here is about maximizing for influence. These tactics specifically just shows an example. A lot of our customers do this. I think it was Brian Lamana from Gong who originally wrote this email specifically, and basically to move, hey, let's ahead of the call, if I'm meeting multiple people, I'll send this, and we'll say, hey, we'll be covering all of these things during that call. If there's anything you want to prioritize in the agenda, in the meantime, here's a quick link you might find useful, giving them resources with hyperlinks from different sections in the room, and then he starts kind of isolating these people and building multiple threads. So then you can follow up after that call and say, maybe for someone from the technical side, hey, you mentioned X, here's a resource that's relevant. Let me know if you'd like to dive deeper into that topic. So that's the idea. We do this all the time. Like, we have end users using the product. Our AEs will often reach out to some of them during the sales process and start isolating some of them and help them become an evangelists, making them better users of the product. Or there are some folks with objections. Maybe there are multiple directors running an evaluation, sales directors, and now one of them has some more hesitation. We will go and maybe have separate conversations just with that person, right? Instead of just getting to another call and then they have the audience, everyone hear them. So if you isolate them, if you hear them out, if you remove that audience and make them feel important, that's a great way to go and create these single threads one after the other.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree. And I think this is Brian LeMan as I've recognized it. I was like, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's definitely one I've saved of his.
Yeah.
All right, let's go into play number 4. Krysten, this is one of yours, the 3 power levels or the groundswell POV. Would love for you to break this down.
Yeah. So, I love a good system for things, and somebody was asking in the question and answer about how do we keep track of everyone this we've talked to or what they care about. This is one way I like to keep track of it. Kevin Dorsey has talked about, like, you go low for information, mid-level for insight, and high for influence. And so it's helpful to think about it that way so that we can make sure that we're speaking about it the right way at every the benefits at every different level, but also understanding what they care about at each different level. And one of the reasons we do this is that the information and insight that we can get from end users and managers can be invaluable. Like Gal was talking about the AE that was closing deals in a merger, right? Like that's invaluable intel, understanding that this is happening even behind the scenes of a merger. And the other thing is, the more, and Gal, you definitely weigh in on this, but this has been my experience. Sometimes the more senior an executive is, the less likely they may know how things like on the ground actually are, like the end users, like day to day and pains, because not everyone wants to speak like truth to power. Not everyone is going to be like, well, this is making my day really hard, right? Like they don't always know. And so many times we might be able to give an executive insight into their own teams and how they're working and what the bottlenecks are, which can be incredibly valuable if delivered in the right way.
When do you recommend to use this? In which
From the very beginning. While, and this can also, the original goal for this was to be able to develop a point of view for executives, right? To be able to start with end users and then say, okay, who else should I be talking to? Who is your peer or your manager about, like, because sometimes managers, when reps or accountants or analysts have this problem, usually their managers are having this problem. Does that sound familiar? And ideally, especially if it's enterprise, we should have a pretty good idea who those managers are. Like LinkedIn, we should hopefully be able to use LinkedIn and have some idea of who we should be looking to speak with. But the more information we can gather here, the better. I remember one of my colleagues at Outreach was working with a huge insurance broker, and he started working with their individual producers and then the heads in their office to understand all the pain, and then brought that to their executive committees. And by the time he had talked to so many people, like the whole org was basically like clamoring for this when whenever he had told them like what it was. Like it was a literal groundswell. Like everyone was like, and the exec literally told him, they're like, you have made yourself like impossible to ignore, because across our teams people are asking about this.
well, this
Amazing.
such a powerful tool.
Love a good framework. It makes it so much easier to go into. Let's talk about the next one, play 5 here, below the line support.
We've kind of talked about this, where it's not just like above the line buyers are important, like below the line folks are very important, to understand like what's important to them and how we can make their day kind of easier, faster, better. When we think about, Gal does a great job of talking in posts about like buyer enablement, champion enablement. And one of the ways we can do this for folks that are like below the line end users, managers of end users, is to give them what I call like buyer guide questions, where we say, hey, when customers have evaluated, when prior customers have evaluated something like this, these are 5 questions that they said were the most valuable that they asked, or things they wish they would have asked going into this evaluation, right? Everyone wants to know what other people are doing. And so knowing how other people have evaluated, whether that's just questions you include in an email or a full out buyer guide, if it's a really robust solution, that is something valuable. Like good reps are always looking for value adds. That's not just thought leadership. It's not, hey, always I saw this article and thought of you. Sometimes it's, I know that you got tasked with the technical evaluation here, and this is not your day job. So here's a framework that can help you think through how to evaluate a product like this. And we can use, and I'll send this to Ashley. I have a prompt where we can use ChatGPT to build this out very quickly, so that we can be truly helpful, right? Not just send them articles.
Yeah, I think I love this. I think below the line, essentially, when you think about a business case, eventually that an executive would need to approve, then they care a lot about the problem and the impact and why haven't we like a lot of these questions. Why haven't we been able to solve this? Uh, and if you think about it, like a lot of these questions, yes, you need the strategic information about what's going on in the business, but also others, you have to really understand the root causes of the problem, and you have to understand what have they done to solve it and how their day-to-day looks like. The executive won't understand all of the details, but working with the below the line at that level really helps you understand their day-to-day and be able to digest it level it up to a business case. So the below the line communication is typically less about ROI, less about a deep business case with impact, with board level objectives and OKRs, but it helps bring the proof, okay? Because there's no business case without tying the root cause of the problem to the actual day-to-day things that the product solves for. So that's another kind of key way that I look at the below the line.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 100%.
Amazing. I'm just looking at time here. Let's skip this above the line support, and this will all be sent out to everyone so you can look at it. We could go over exact ghostwriting, or is there any other of these last three plays, Krysten and Gal, that you think would be the most impactful? And then we'll leave time for Q&A. We could probably do two more plays.
Yeah, like I said, I'll send those templates on exec ghostwriting. But I think that play number 8, like the uncover hidden stakeholders, is super important because there's always people, especially with now things being so remote, there's always people that are important that are not immediately obvious.
Absolutely. Gal, you want to take this on uncovering hidden stakeholders?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a little bit of a tactic with a line, but you can use even if you use something like DocSend, it will work at some extent. Basically, the idea is that there are a lot of people behind the scenes, and this tactic talks about trying to be able to uncover them and understand who they are, but by getting some of these signals. So if you use a deal room like Sarah wrote here in her post, like she talked about how she uncovered a lot of people that are hidden behind the scenes that her materials typically get forwarded to. Because when you work a deal over email and send a lot of links and a lot of attachments and a lot of back and forth, basically a lot of your stuff just gets forwarded internally. So if you do it this way, you're just able to uncover. We typically see around 50%, 60% more people that are never joining your calls, that are never even looped to the email, that are just somewhere there behind the scenes. So this is a great way to expose them. Again, if I don't want to make this self-promotional too much, but if you're using DocSend, I think that you could track some of the links that are being opened and understand who are these people that are opening them. Maybe Loom or other links that you send that are gated, um, gated by email where someone needs to put an email. But another way, of course, to do this would be just to ask to understand who's behind the scenes, who we haven't met, like to just talk with your champion and try to understand who these people are that you might have not met and try to get to them.
Yeah, I had a rep I was coaching that was working an enterprise deal that she thought was dead, and she actually was using Aligned, and the senior actually like a below the line stakeholder came in that was new that she didn't recognize, and she just connected with that lady, and she was new to the org and became this huge coach, and eventually got the deal done just because she noticed like who was all of a sudden coming back into this deal room for a deal that had been going on like a long time.
Love it. All right. We have, again, you can see more of this after. Um, Krysten, do you want to go over the peers framework, or should we do the 10th play?
Let's see. I think that the peers thing will be pretty obvious whenever we send out the value added stuff. Just the like customers always find other customers word, more valuable than us as sales reps. And so there's ways that we can make that easier.
Amazing. Okay, well, let's finish it off with this 10th play, and then we're going to leave it open for Q&A. I have quite a few questions that are coming in. If you have questions that you definitely want to be prioritized, make sure that you get them in the chat, and then we'll reserve that time to ask Krysten and Gal. But Gal, would love to hear from you on network multi-threading.
Yeah, so you'll also see a link here to the post. I think it has some of these examples broken down, but the idea here is that we talked about using your manager executive to executive intro, try to get an early, nice and warm, no ask thread built, or maybe even started with that level of introduction. But then a lot of salespeople just don't think beyond it. Okay, how do we continue using that person throughout the funnel? And how do we not only think about our manager or someone from our executive team to do that in multi-threading? And I think this connects to play 9, which you'll see in the follow-up a little bit. So the idea here that we all have a really big network. We just don't know. Everyone has a network, right? There are mutual investors, there are board members, potential new investors that your CEO or founders might have met and have good relationship with. You have customers, you have partners, you have an advisory board, right? There's so many people there that could help you multi-thread. Okay, so and the point that I'm trying to make here is not only you could use these people, and I've seen insane deals really happening. And in this post specifically, the story is about I think it was $1 million deal that we closed in with a company in Japan, which was really irregular, and we couldn't have done it. We went with our investor. We couldn't have done it without her, one of our investors. I was VP sales. We flew together to Japan with my investor. She opened the connection, but we kept her in the loop throughout the entire process. And we wouldn't have closed a deal, definitely not this size, without her. So we used her for the introduction. Now you can use that same person to do research. We had conversations with her to understand politics, to understand personalities, to understand their business priorities. We had other conversations with her. We showed her the ROI calculator. We were selling to retail, and it was the nuances there were really, really important, and how to build that level of ROI calculator that are really believable, that really use their numbers, that don't look like a marketing ROI. And we used her for additional relationship building, problem solving when we got stuck, and of course, in the closing, she helped us get to other people even higher up. So you could use, of course, this is a classic partnership play, but you could use your board, your investors, even customers. If someone has a really, really good relationship with someone on your customer side, like leverage it just beyond an introduction or someone saying good words about you.
Yeah, 1000%. That's a great source of like the inside intel I was talking about.
Amazing. Okay, well, now we will transition to some Q&A here. Make sure that everyone has the chance to utilize this time with Krysten and Gal. There's one from Sumana of what's the play if a non-ICP exec sets himself up as a gatekeeper for the ICP exec? Example, if you wow me, then I'll recommend you to him, but then stonewalls you. And if we need more insight into that, let me know, and so we can get it via chat.
Yeah. Gal, do you want to, can you think of like a story of like a particular way that you've handled
Yeah,
that? Like,
I'm trying to think about the question still. So non-ICP ICP would be the industry and the company size. So it sounds like an executive that is not the right buyer persona, like
yeah,
not the
yep.
person we're selling to. Yeah, it sounds like if they're not like if you're selling to product, but this person is from the CS and they're blocking you, and then I would just go straight to the person that I'm trying to sell to.
Yeah.
So we might need more information about this specific scenario. It sounds like there's something behind it, a specific deal situation. But yeah, I would not be afraid of just trying multiple angles, especially if you're selling to the enterprise. Like if someone wants to introduce you, try to go through different routes, try to find a way in.
Yeah, we had a situation when I was at User Gems that the VP of IT was like, "I'm the decision maker," and IT was never that. Like IT was always involved in making the decision, but they were never the decision maker, and because they're not the ones that primarily benefit,
Mm.
and so I then connected my VP of marketing with their VP of growth, and they had actually met each other at a conference, and so had them reestablish that executive like line of communication. And then at the end of the deal, when the VP of IT came in and tried to absolutely like gut the price and was ready to walk away, I sent a note to our VP of marketing. She reached out to the VP of growth and like, hey, here's what's happening. I think that there may not be like the full context. VP of growth sent IT back to the table and we actually won that deal. But that would not have happened if we had just stayed with that IT leader and had our leader reconnect with a different executive.
Nice. I love that. Gal, there's an aligned question I want to make sure that we cover really quickly here. So obviously you can see uncover those hidden stakeholders within the deal rooms on the analytics tab. Brooke has a question. Should we force aligned room viewers to submit their email name to access? My team doesn't have that turned on at the moment, but seems like best practice. Would love some thoughts on this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 100% best practice. We always see higher clicks. In general, there are higher clicks on sending 10 emails and attachments and a lot of emails versus just one. So you'll get them to click in and to enter. And then they see that there are resources, right? And these resources are personalized. There's a roadmap, maybe. There's some stuff there. And like from any interview that we've done and all of the A/B tests that we've ran around this, buyers appreciate the fact that you have a level of security on top of it. Like you send, we used to send investors doc sends in the past. Like that's a parallel universe to this. It's always email protected, so it's not a login. It's not a sign up or something like that. It's just, hey, you want to enter and view some of the resources I've shared, just plug in your email. It's not a big deal, and it gets you that visibility. It's like the basic way of how you run this. The option of not including an email is more for if you want to run a post event follow up and a trade show or something like that. Then sometimes you do that, or if you're doing outbound, in outbound situations, sometimes you're doing that. Okay.
Nice. And just a quick follow-up on that from Elizabeth. How do you handle privacy compliance with banks, healthcares, et cetera, and having everything around their account in an aligned room?
Yeah, so it's also non-issue. There's more security in a room than your email, because your email can easily get forwarded. That room could also get forwarded, but then you could have more levels of security. So if you're now speaking with a bank and just sending them a deck, then no issue. But if you're now deep into legal process, back and forth, you're doing a lot of things over there, then level up the permission. You could do password protection. You could do the double authentication. Uh, you could do more things.
Amazing. Kristen, question from John here. My question is, how do you get fewer stakeholders, even if they are important in the process on calls and emails, when they insist on bringing in others for visibility? As mentioned before, we know too many people involved will lower engagement. Would love your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I think it just coming at that head on to be like, a lot of times customers think that including more people for visibility, they're trying to be efficient. And I can see how that is, from that, I see how that's the thought. However, what we found with other customers is when they bring folks into this situation, if you have if it's folks from operations, finance, and HR that are benefiting from this solution, if those three groups all want something different. And so usually what works better is to have a demo for operations and have a separate demo for finance and have a separate demo for HR. That way each group can get the most out of content that is meant specifically for them. And like to be like, I want you to, the goal here for me for this call is for you to look good in front of the other people that you are bringing on for your company, not for them to be frustrated by the fact that they didn't get their questions answered. And normally when people start to think about that, like, how's your VP of finance going to feel when their team is like, I didn't get anything out of that. Like sometimes those group things can do more harm than good. So when's a good time to do a demo for just your group so that we can really, really make it a valuable use of everybody's time? I think if you just show how it's a win for everyone, because it is, then it just helps people think about it differently. And that's really like what we should be doing throughout the selling cycle, is helping people make a series of good decisions.
I love that. I think we didn't touch on that a lot throughout this conversation. Like we talked a lot about moves, right? You send an email, your exec sends an email, but hey, this is for your champion as much as it is for you, right? If you just communicate with them, talk with them, and tell them, hey, I think that it would make sense to involve this person. This is how it helped us. Like, if you really have a champion, you could have that conversation and you could walk into a lot of these different people. You could even tell them, yeah, maybe we'll reach out separately, or I'll have my CEO reach out separately. We had a deal earlier this year where, okay, I had multiple situations like that. So two stories. One, we were coming into an account that had our competitor already there in EMEA. VP US sales tested it, didn't like it, liked us better, tried to push us through. The CRO, okay, was new, didn't like it, wanted to consolidate just one solution for every space. And he kept pushing, and we never met him. We only met her. We met her team. We never met the EMEA team. And basically, what she did, the VP US sales, she wrote an email for me to send to her CEO. Okay, she's also VP sales, so she gets it. But she helped us navigate. We had that discussion. She said, "Hey, tell this to to my CEO. That would get him to go and just push this from the top." And he did, and the deal happened. Okay, just having that conversation and having a real champion. Sometimes they'll even suggest the moves, and they'll even bring that multi-threading to your doorstep.
Amazing. All right, well, we are at time now. First of all, thank you everyone who attended this webinar or maybe listening to it afterwards. We really appreciate you joining us and having a great conversation here. And especially thank you to Krysten for taking the time to join us here and give us her wisdom on the topic. If you're not following her on LinkedIn, go follow her right now. It's so fun to learn from her. She's truly the expert on this topic. We will be sending out everything in an aligned room. Pam called it out in the chat earlier. You were reading our minds. So we'll have a ton of information stacked in there. Krysten's providing us a lot of follow-up links that she mentioned in the conversation as well. And thank you, Gal, for helping us out here as well. And we'll be sending this out for everyone to view. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.